As soon as the band have left the stage, the loadout begins. Workers swarm over the equipment like bees in a hive. For Nick, it's time for one last tour of the stadium.
Red shirts going off to the video department, so they'll get split up between the front of house video, where all the video control is, and the on-stage video equipment and the cameras. This barricade system here is it's called a Mojo barrier, and it was the first freestanding barricade system, not ours in particular, but the company that made it. It just enables you to have no bracing coming backwards out of it. So you've got a foot plate out the front of it, which the people actually stand on when they're up against it, so it makes it impossible for it to move because of their own weight. And then you have the small steps which the security can get up on to bring the punters back over if they're injured.
Again, I just double check with the stage managers that they've got all their crew. You know, a few occasions we're short of crew, and I see whether we can get other people in, local security, bribe them to come in to make the numbers up. Pack up the office, load it into a truck, load the wardrobe and everybody else's office gear into the truck, and that's me pretty much finished for the night. Normally by the time I've finished, there's probably about another 45 minutes, maximum an hour, before the universal loadout's ended.
While the band have joined their private jet, the crew are on the bus.
That's my bunk.
There's little glamour at the rock and roll coalface. After a long, hard 16-hour-plus day, the crew will travel hundreds of miles on the bus to the next gig.
I'll get in the bus, you know, when we finish the loadout, and I could be anywhere really.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll, not for this crew. From Gothenburg to Copenhagen, from Germany to Poland, from Europe to America, the tour rarely ever stops.
Yeah, it's a pain in the arse, isn't it? Just walking straight in a venue, walking straight out. It's not travelling, that's for sure.
I'm probably away 11 months a year. Now that the South American markets and the Asian markets have really started to open up, it's always summer somewhere, and there's always a show somewhere, and I'm lucky that I get out on these things.
We'll see like a 2-week break after this leg here before we start America, and we'll probably see about 4 weeks around Christmas time, and that's necessary, just like the transit equipment to South America. That also gives people time off, and they need to recharge their batteries, because this is very extensive.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and that's not joking.
This particular tour, we're spending an enormous amount of time on the bus, very little time in hotels, just because of the schedule, because of going back to back to back to back.
You two, as a band, have imposed very high standards on themselves that trickle out, and the closer you are to them in your job position, the nearer you are to those high standards. And it's not something that they ever have to remind us of. We all know if the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, you answer it.
You really resent after a while not having your privacy. I think more than anything, even if you get on with everybody, which is a miracle if you do, and the size of a crew, then you just lose your privacy, lose your space.
It's a big responsibility. All the senior people have a huge responsibility, and you need to be available, you need to be on top of it. You can't be somewhere else when the problem arises.
Keeping a home life together is incredibly difficult. Having any kind of normality of a home life, a family life, you really pay the penalty for being out here.
When somebody is out of sorts on the road, when they're fighting with their colleagues, or when they're not giving 100%, invariably, almost always, it's something at home that's affecting them.
Because I've been doing it kind of like over 20 years, then I was going to say, I suppose I deal with it, but having been divorced twice, I probably don't very well. I think it's really hard.
We have a very open door policy to families coming out on the road, and you've probably seen while you've been here, kids. My own son was here until this morning. Wives, girlfriends. We don't stop people bringing their families out. I would much prefer to have somebody's family here and have the employee happy and content than have them freaked out because something is going on at home, or they think there's something going on at home. I mean, I wake up at night occasionally and I'm convinced my daughter or my son or my wife has had a terrible accident, and it's upsetting and it's distressing.
Everyone is saying this is the last big stadium tour, blah, blah, blah. But we'll see, you know, I mean, we'll see what happens. There's no point in trying to second guess the future, but I can't see any reason why this couldn't go on indefinitely.
I always thought it would get simpler, because if you look at like the video camera was something huge at one point, and you're carrying around a video camera in your hand now that can do anything a TV camera did 15, 20 years ago. But here we seem to have all this wonderful technology, but it takes a lot more structure to make it all happen. It warrants a bigger steel system with much more base detail. Plus the fact that like not only the technological end of it, but the engineering end of it, we have to like fulfill all requirements in terms of wind loading and local requirements and how it has to be built and what the structure has to be, the DIN codes necessary to make that all happen.
Technology is changing so quickly. I mean, there are around us sound experiments with little cards that members of the audience will have in their pocket and earphones in their ears, so that there's a perfect sound delivered to each seat, which theoretically will do away with big orange balls like this. The lighting world has changed. We were joking last night about how little focusing lighting crew have to do anymore. They take it out of the truck, they hang it up, they press a button on a front of house desk, and everything goes zip, and it's focused. The screen technology we have here behind us, while it's huge and at the moment labour intensive because it's new and because we've invented it and created it, but it's still 5 feet less deep than the screens we used 4 years ago. So I don't know where it's going to go. Digital TV will change all this. In theory, we can broadcast this show via satellite anywhere in the world. Are we heading for a day when people won't come to shows, they watch them at home? Will we be putting on studio shows only? I really don't know. Where do we go for the answer? I think you have to go back to the artists. You have to go back to Mick Jagger, and you have to go back to Bono, and you have to go back to the people who really drive this.
I mean, what's great is you're always trying to do things which are only just possible. I mean, 5 years ago we did Zoo TV, which was completely groundbreaking, and you could probably buy the stuff in Radio Shack today, you know. And this is the biggest video screen on Earth. And 5 years from now, this would probably be easy to do, but there'd be no point in doing it because teenagers in college will be doing it. So that's always the challenge, and you always think you've reached the limit. But no, we'll be around.
Now we load all the small boxes into the big boxes and drive them to the next place. And over the next 3 days, I go to London, Steve has already gone to Ireland, and Nick goes to Helsinki.
We scatter around the universe.
Who are you going to follow?